So tonight, or this afternoon, I keep thinking it's evening. It must be the dark hour. So today, the feature presentation is particularly relevant to the United Nations Global Compact. So our feature presenter, Dr. Qin Fan, her body of research focuses on a number of issues that relate to sustainable development and particularly the environment. In 2019, the Craig School led the university to sign the world's largest corporate social responsibility initiative, the United Nations Global Compact. And this research is an example of one way in which our university really works to create new knowledge to help make the world a better place. So I'm very excited to introduce our feature presenter, Dr. Qin Fan, who is an outstanding professor in the Department of Economics. She is a prolific researcher, an excellent instructor, and she engages in so much meaningful service to the school, the university, and beyond that we are really, really excited to count her as a colleague. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Fan to present her research.
Thank you, Julie, for the introduction. All right, so thank you everyone for coming to Craig Talks. My name is Qin Fan, a social professor of economics. Today I'm going to talk about climate change and regional economic impacts, focusing on Central California. Before I do that, I would like to talk some background on me and what motivates my research. My primary teaching and research interests are environmental economics, focusing on climate change and natural disasters, and non-market valuation. The private goods and services, you see the price tag, but not for environmental goods and public goods. For example, I have been working with my colleagues in Craig School of Business, the professors in Rose State, and Professor AJ and Professor Jerry and Jackie Curry. We've been looking at capitalization effects of stormwater basins in Fresno, Clovis area. So we use a certain technique and methodology that we can use to review the implicit value of that using the observable data from the housing market. The photo on top, that's me presenting at a regional conference just 3 weeks back and addressing climate change and farmers' adaptation behavior under future changes in climate. For example, in terms of crop choice and irrigation decisions, if there is change in future climate. And the photo at the bottom, that's me also teaching economics of climate change. And we were discussing in the classroom addressing climate change impacts, climate change mitigation, and climate change adaptation. So as Julie just mentioned, my broader interest aligns with Principles 7, 8, and 9 of United Nations Global Compact that Fresno State is a member of under leadership of our dean, Dr. Julie Olson Buchanan. And my broader interest links the human decision with the environment and sustainable development, including business decision making and business strategies. I've been living and studying in the East Coast for many years before I moved to California in Fresno in 2013. When I was a graduate student at Pennsylvania State University in State College, I was interested in job-driven and amenity-driven migration. So in terms of amenity-driven, you can think about climate, weather, but the difference between weather and climate is weather, we talk about the short-term atmospheric conditions such as temperature, precipitation. But climate captures the long-term weather conditions. So at that time, I was interested in cold winter, hot summer, heavy rainfall in Seattle. How does it affect your relocation decisions? Whether I wanted to move across the country from Pennsylvania to California for warmer winter? I did think about that when I moved to Fresno and realized that winter is definitely warmer, but summer can be too warm. So later, after I moved to Fresno State in 2013, that's the year when I joined in the Department of Economics. I was also serving on urban and regional transformation cohort as a columnist. At that time, I started exploring and studying some of the local and regional economic development opportunities as well as challenges, such as heat wave, water scarcity, drought. I have observed the driest years since 2011 until 2015, 2014 being the worst. But that's not the end. Later, I'm going to show you what's happening now in 2022. So this figure from NASA in 2022 shows the temperature anomaly. This is the temperature deviation from the baseline temperature. So the baseline is a 30-year average from 1950 to 1980. Now you can see from this figure in the most recent years, a temperature anomaly dramatically increased. How about the San Joaquin Valley? Now this figure shows the temperature, the high temperature in August in San Joaquin Valley. Now you see the trend conforms the trend in the previous slide. Especially after 2018, the high temperature in summer in August dramatically increased. However, when I talk about climate change, it does not only mean the increase in mean temperature or change in precipitation. It also indicates the increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme events. I believe everybody in this room remembers this back in 2020. Creek fire hit the Shaver Lake community and the mountain areas surrounding Shaver Lake community. And this was a picture taken in the middle of creek fire. I did interview some of my students and friends in the valley because most of my students, they were born and raised in the valley. I asked them how you feel about climate change. Do you see climate change is happening? Do you see any changes over those years? My students said, my grandparents, they live in this region. I've seen the changes, especially the increase in wildfires and the major events. Anybody can recognize this one? This is in Millerton Lake. And this is a riverbank, used to be underwater. I saw those changes in those years because I like go hiking and with my kids too. And we do see the decline in water level in different bodies of water. You might be familiar with this. As I said, even after the driest year, now in 2022, if you look at this map, Central California is still under the exceptional drought condition, while most of the western states of the US are either under extreme drought condition or exceptional drought condition. How about water? Surface water versus groundwater. Now, this shows the San Joaquin River Basin in Central California, and this is a critically overdrafted water basin. When you think about the groundwater overdraft, that will have so many negative consequences, including the land subsidence, further affecting the housing market or the housing supply, whether the land is available for further development or not. Now you can see my recent research focuses on climate change, natural disasters, and migration. So I got many media requests, either asking for a fact check or interviewing my opinion about climate change-induced migration or post-disaster recovery. For example, Real Estate News, the medium based in New York, they interviewed me regarding the climate change impacts on the housing market. They were writing an article on climate change and real estate. And my recent work with Dr. Laura Beckinson at University of Arizona, we look at the hurricane risk. And another paper, I worked with my collaborator in Texas, we look at the storm surge event. My early work, I work with Dr. Karen Fisher-Rand and Dr. Alan Kleiber. We look at climate change-induced migration, US internal migration, and market feedbacks. After that publication, I got a lot of requests from media asking me my opinion about climate migration pattern, internal migration, or post-disaster recovery. For example, from National Geographic, and they asked me my opinion about the disaster recovery, can be after hurricane. So what would be the migration pattern or adaptive behavior or public assistance I see in this area? Chicago Booth Review just requested a fact check 2 weeks back. They're writing an article about climate migration. A few years ago, I was asked to write an opinion article about different segments of population by different educational attainment and how they react to changing climate or extreme weather in the valley. When you think about different segments of population, either skilled workers versus low-skilled workers, college graduates versus the population or persons without high school diploma, and which segment of the population are more likely to move, the college graduates are more likely to move or mobile because they have opportunities somewhere else to find a job, right? So if there is extreme weather in the valley, or if people have choice, they vote with feet, and we're more likely to lose top talents or skilled workers in the valley. But there are some market feedbacks. When you think about more people leave the valley instead of move into the coastal region, and the housing demand will go up, driving up the housing prices. So you're not surprised to see in the valley, and you might read that in the article later, and the housing price in San Joaquin Valley, the mean value is at least 50% less compared to the coastal region housing price. And that's the housing market, right? So when the housing price becomes much higher, or the cost of living becomes more expensive, that might become a push factor for migration, while the comparably affordable housing in the valley might become a pull factor for migration. I do want to show you this data from USDA. Since we're talking about skilled workers, college graduates, if you compare the data across years, by comparing with 1970-year data, you see for San Joaquin Valley counties, the percent of college graduates increased over years. That's good news. However, if you compare that with the state average, you see there's still a big gap. This table is interesting because maybe not everyone is aware of that. Now, one of the fast-growing industries in the valley is the healthcare and education services sector. You see the wage rate in this sector stays quite competitive in the valley. For example, if you look at Stanislaus, this county has the highest wage rate compared to even the highly populous coastal counties, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles. Now, if you take a look at the Fresno, the wage rate is not quite different compared to San Francisco and Los Angeles. So that highly competitive wage can possibly attract and retain skilled workers in the valley. So that we call dampening impact. If you are worried about, concerned about losing top talent, somehow those feedbacks can prevent further outflow of skilled workers. Why this is the number presented here? What drives the result? When you think about more workers, skilled workers, move into high amenity places like San Diego, that will maybe drive up labor supply, causing more competition in the labor market. So it's possible the wage rate is not as competitive as the wage rate in the valley. I would like to summarize my findings. So first of all, climate change in terms of both changes in temperature and changes in frequency and intensity of extreme events possibly can cause skill loss in the valley. However, there are dampening impacts or possible countervailing forces from labor market and the housing market. When more people move into the coastal region and the housing demand goes up, driving up the housing price, expensive living might become a push factor for migration, while affordable living in the valley becomes a pull factor. For the labor market, for the fast-growing industries such as healthcare and educational services, and the competitive wage rate might attract and retain skilled workers in the valley. Since we talk about some of the challenges in the valley, what are the possible solutions? Sustainable community and regional development plans, and to promote diversified regional and local economies that continue to support the fast-growing industries, such as the healthcare and educational services sector. Also, in addition to climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies that promote quality of life to attract and retain skilled workers can also support the long-term sustainable goal in the valley. So this is me taking photos, the wildlife photos at Merced National Wildlife Refuge. And some of my friends and colleagues know one of my hobbies in my spare time is nature photography. So I made the big decision to move across the country from Pennsylvania to Fresno. But I think this is a perfect place for me and my family because of the nature, because of proximity to the national forests and national parks. And I want to conclude my presentation using a quote by Dr. Jane Goodall. What you do makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Thank you.